Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Peverly Hill Project Neighborhood Meeting. My name is Karen Conard. I'm the city manager. I'm joined here by staff and consultants, and DPW Director Peter Rice will introduce the group in a moment. I just want to let folks know that we are participating in a hybrid manner. So we have folks here in person in council chambers. We also are accommodating people via Zoom, and we're happy to do so. So this is a message to the folks on Zoom. You are welcome to participate by raising your hand when we get to the end of the presentation, and we will alternate back and forth between the folks in the room and the folks on Zoom. So we will accommodate and include everyone who chooses to speak. So with that, I'll turn things over to Peter.
Good evening. My name is Peter Rice. I'm the Director of Public Works, and with me this evening is Brian Colburn from McFarland Johnson, who's our consulting engineer for this project. Eric Eby, our former transportation engineer, who is
2 more days.
Who is with us for his last public meeting. Suzanne Woodland, the Deputy City Attorney, and of course the City Manager. We have a brief presentation this evening, which Brian will walk through. I will finish the presentation, and then we'll open it up to discussion. So with that, Brian, why don't you give your brief presentation?
All right, thank you. Just a quick setup of what we're going to be discussing tonight. This is somewhat of a report back from the site walk that we had on Peverly Hill Road back on April 3rd, where we went around and walked the properties with residents and had some questions about potentially some different alternatives. So we went back, looked at a couple of different ideas. We'll be showing the comparison of those to the current design tonight. We did present those concepts to the City Council on April 19th at their meeting, and they requested that we show those concepts to residents at this time. Just a refresher about this project, the Peverly Hill Road project starts at Middle Road and extends southerly to West Road. The current design is to construct 2 11-foot travel lanes with 2-foot shoulders on either side, have a 6-foot sidewalk on the east side, and a 10-foot shared use path on the west side. For most of the length of the shared use path, we would have a 3-foot grass strip separating the path from the roadway. Although to accommodate some of the property owner concerns, there are a couple places where we've eliminated that grass strip. I'll be showing various versions of this image, so just to orient you, this is if you're standing on Peverly Hill Road looking south towards Route 1. This is a plan view, again, just to orient some people. South is to the right, north is to the left. The gray area would be the proposed pavement surface. Orange are just driveway matches that we would do as part of the project. The light blue is the sidewalk or the path, depending on which side of the road you're on. And the dark green area is the amount of lawn or grass that we would need to regrade as part of the project. The dashed white line is the existing right-of-way along Peverly Hill Road. So again, the current design has a sidewalk on the east side and a shared use path on the west side. We were asked to evaluate if we were just to provide the sidewalk on the east side, but provide bike lanes. So these are 5-foot shoulders instead of 2-foot shoulders. So that's what, at this particular spot, that's what that concept would look like. So you can see the roadway's 6 feet wider than the current design, but there is no side path on the west side because we would be able to accommodate bicyclists within the roadway. We were also asked to look at what if we just added a sidewalk only to the project. So here is the narrow roadway with 11-foot lanes and the 2-foot shoulders with just the sidewalk on the east side and no multi-use path on the west side. This option would accommodate pedestrians and motor vehicles, but bicyclists would need to ride in the lanes with the vehicles. They would not have their own accommodation. So just in cross-section view to contrast the different options. So on the top is our current design with the shared use path and the sidewalk. And below is the option where we would build the sidewalk and the bicycle lanes. So again, there are the 5-foot shoulders where the bicycles are, you can see, but the roadway width is wider. So this would be a 32-foot wide road if we were to put the bike lanes in, as opposed to 26 feet if we have the side path. One of the concerns we heard early on in this project is about the speeds of vehicles traveling down Beverly Hill Road now. So that is one concern with this option to provide bicycle lanes, is we're widening the roadway, and typically wider roads produce higher speeds. This was comparing the current design with the option to just provide the sidewalk. So you can see for the most part, they're the same, with the exception of that shared use path. But you'll notice on the slide at the bottom where we just provided the sidewalk, there really is no accommodation for bicyclists, so they would be riding with cars. We wanted to compare the options based on the amount of permanent easements the project would require. So with the current design of the sidewalk and the shared use path, the project needs 9 permanent easements, some for drainage, some for the shared use path, and some to maintain the sidewalk. So if we were to switch to constructing the sidewalk and the bicycle lanes option, 3 of those permanent easements would no longer be required because the footprint of the project would get narrower. But as you can see, we would still need 6. If we construct the sidewalk only, that number drops to 4. And these are mostly, 3 of them are for drainage related needs. So as we reconstruct any road within the city, one of the tasks we have to do is make sure that we're providing stormwater treatment as part of the project. It's part of a permit the city's obtained. So 3 of these are just a result of that. And then the 4th one near Marona Road is where the sidewalk actually would extend outside the existing right-of-way, so we need a permanent easement for the sidewalk area. We also took a look at temporary easements. So there'll be 2 slides here. This first slide is starting at the north end of the project and working our way towards the south. So in total, we have 17 temporary easements that are required. The ones listed here in bold are needed for the sidewalk side of the road. So regardless of the 3, whichever of the 3 options is pursued, all of the ones in bold would be required. Now, temporary easement is just that. It's just the rights for the contractor to come onto the property and in most cases just blend in the driveway. So we extend into the outside the right-of-way just to provide a reasonable slope to the driveway. But there are some areas where we would require some grading behind the sidewalk, replanting the grass, and in one case we need to build a retaining wall along the right-of-way line, so we would need a little bit of room to do that. So you can see here all but 2 on this page are needed for the sidewalk. The other 2 are needed for the multi-use path. And then again, working towards the south, here's another 8 where 5 of them are needed on the sidewalk side of the road and 3 would be needed as part of the path. So we put together this comparison matrix to try to summarize some of the key issues as we decide which way to move forward. So the first 2 were accommodate bicycles and slow traffic. And again, these were 2 points we heard early on in the project from the public that really helped frame really the purpose and need for this project. We've highlighted there the number of permanent easements that are required, whether a necessity hearing, which the city council would need to act, is needed, how each of the options is influenced by New Hampshire DOT's funding, and then how it impacts schedules and consistency with both the Complete Streets policy and the master plan. So I just want to highlight, as mentioned before, if we only construct a sidewalk, the accommodation for bikes is not there, And because we would be curbing the road, as opposed to right now, there's no curb, some bicyclists might actually feel it's worse, because right now, if a bicyclist is riding with traffic and they feel crowded, they can simply just go off into the shoulder. Once we provide curbing, at least on the sidewalk side, that option, they wouldn't have that option. They would have to actually hop up over the curb. So that's why it says worse there. For slowing traffic, widening the road with that bicycle lane option, again, studies have shown wider roads can lead to higher speeds, so that would be a concern there. The next two columns really to highlight that all of these options are going to require permanent easements to be constructed. Two of the parcels have conservation easements associated with them. So in order to obtain rights on a parcel that has a conservation easement, you have to go through the necessity hearing. That's just it's a procedure that allows the public and the governing body to weigh the benefits of the project against what the original, those conservation easements were set up for, to see if it makes sense for the project to encumber some of those rights. In terms of NHDOT funding, in previous meetings we've mentioned that this project is funded through what's called the Congestion Management Air Quality Program at New Hampshire DOT. So this project was selected based on its anticipated benefits to air quality and congestion. So project went in and said we're going to add sidewalks and bicycle lanes. That should reduce traffic, which should reduce emissions. So if we switch to providing a sidewalk with bicycle lanes, it's likely that DOT would continue to fund that because we're still providing those methods of attracting bicyclists and pedestrians along the route. But if we switch to only providing the sidewalk, it's not known at this point if the project would still be funded by NHDOT. They would have to do an air quality analysis revision to see if it would still qualify for the program. So all of that impacts schedule. So we're currently on a schedule getting ready, or if we proceed with the current design, the next step would be public necessity hearing. So there is no schedule impact. But if we take a step back and look at any of those other alternatives, there's likely a year to a year plus delay in the project. So I think I've gone through this, but yeah, just again to highlight, it's really that's a snippet of the air quality analysis that the city and the Regional Planning Commission undertook to demonstrate that the project as envisioned produced an air quality benefit and congestion benefit. So that would need to be redone if the project is changed. So next steps, if we continue with the current design, which is the sidewalk and the shared use path, the next step is for the City Council to hold the public necessity hearing. That would allow the project to move into final design and start to acquire the right-of-way. Once that is done, we move into construction. If the preferred design switches to a sidewalk and bicycle lane concept, the next step would be for us to seek New Hampshire DOT concurrence, that they agree that that alternative still meets the purpose and need for the project. We expect that they would. We would then move to a public meeting to confirm with the general public that that's where we want to proceed. If everybody's on board, we have to redesign the project. We're about 60% designed right now. So we would need to go back and redo our engineering drawings and reevaluate how the project impacts the environmental resources and historic resources along the corridor. After that's done, we would basically be back to where we are right now with the current design. Still need to conduct a public necessity hearing in order to move into final design and acquire right-of-way. If we proceed with the sidewalk-only option, there's a few more steps with this, as I mentioned before. So again, have a public meeting to confirm that the public supports the change design. We would need to seek New Hampshire DOT's input on funding eligibility. They would likely reach out to the Regional Planning Commission to have them redo their air quality analysis. And then they would either confirm or say that the project is no longer eligible for funding under that program. We would likely come back to the city council once that determination is made to see if the city wants to proceed. I think, obviously if the funding formula changes, currently it's 80% funded by the state, 20% funded by the city under that program. So if we fall out of that program and it becomes a 100% city-funded project, city council will need to decide if they want to continue to move forward. If they decide to do that, then we would proceed with redesigning the project and reassessing the environmental impacts and get us back to the necessity hearing and then on to final design.
Thank you, Brian. This is really a connectivity project linking neighborhoods from the north side of the city along Peverly and the south side. So it really, as you can see by this field, this figure, there's the existing playing fields at the Plains area that are relatively difficult for folks from the southwest side or southeast side of town, like the Elwyn Park area, to get over to those ball fields. Conversely, the new ball fields off of Campus Drive are challenging for folks who come from the Plains ball field side. So in terms of providing additional access to kids that want to get back and forth to these playing areas, the recommended option allows for that. As Brian had mentioned, all options require a public necessity hearing. So because of those options, because all options require that, staff wants to recommend the one that benefits the most residents for this project. And we believe the original design as it stands is the best benefit for the residents. And we feel that the accommodations that have been made to adjust the design address and mitigate the concerns that have been expressed. And therefore, that's the recommended option that the staff are making. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to any questions or discussions.
Let me remind folks on Zoom that if you wish to participate, please raise your virtual hand, and we'll make sure to integrate you with the folks that are here in person. So if anyone wants to come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Marie Keller. I live at number 297. According to all your drawings, I will be the most impacted on this road. I realize that it's city property that you're taking. I feel it's disproportionate to what's happening on the other end of the road, but we'll get to that. I am not opposed to a multi-use path. A multi-use path to me also includes a sidewalk on the multi-use path. I don't understand why we have to have both. Call it what it is. If it's a multi-use path, people should be able to walk on it. I don't see why there has to be a sidewalk on the other side. I think the scope of the project has gotten so big. We have been asking for a sidewalk for 25 years on this road. That's the time that I've lived on this road. My kids have never been able to walk up to that ball field, ride their bikes, nothing. We've been pushed off and pushed off and pushed off so many times, being told it'll start in the fall, it'll start next spring, it'll start in the fall. We're 25 years later and we're still playing these games. We've asked the removal of trucks. I feel if we remove the trucks, reduce the speeds, narrow the roads, add a multi-use path, that will solve all the problems. You're talking about air quality. You can't really say air quality is going to get better if the volume of cars stays the same, the trucks stay the same, everything about it. I don't understand what that's going to change as far as air quality. We've never seen traffic calming studies done on our road. I've seen the blinking speed sign. I don't know if the battery dies because it blinks so much on that road because nobody's going the 25 miles per hour, or if it's just that's how it goes. The only thing I've ever seen is the count. And we know there's a lot of counting on that road. There's a lot of traffic. We understand that. Now we got a skateboard park happening. And all of a sudden it's, let's get this going, let's get this going. For every neighborhood around us yet, when we were asking for it for our children growing up, it didn't happen. We always talked about when our kids run walkers, be able to take them out and do whatever. We didn't realize it was going to wait until we were actually using walkers to get this to happen. We're watching Banfield Road. Banfield Road has no trucks. They're getting sidewalks. They're getting speed humps. Their volume of traffic increases summertime because of water country. And I know that's probably a nuisance to them, but that's maybe 3 months. We're dealing with this year round. The construction, the delivery trucks, the speeds, I don't know how many times I've been told I'm number one in people's lives just trying to get in and out of my driveway. I think everything just needs to be, a give and take on that road needs to be equal. You're making one side of the street feel bad against the other side of the street. We have nice neighbors. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't feel the need for both. And we talked about on our walk, if you can narrow it down to 8 feet, can you narrow it down to 8 feet the whole way? 2 feet of difference on my side would be heaven, because right now you're putting them on my doorstep. I'm losing what you're gaining on one side of the road as far as driveways and grass and whatever. I'm losing in front of my house. So you've lengthened these driveways, but you've shortened mine. You've made it easier for them to get in and out of their driveway. You're making mine more difficult. Maybe split it down the middle, give them so much, take so much from me, and somehow make it feel better than it does right now, because right now it feels pretty bad. So, thank you.
I don't see any hands from those on Zoom, but we're happy to have people come to the podium.
Sure. Come on up.
I'm Julia Russell, and my husband Jay Goldsmith, and we live at 515 Peverly Hill Road. And thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this issue. We've been residents of Peverly Hill Road for 26 years and have participated in all the planning meetings. Ours is one of the properties that will require an easement. Years ago, Eric Eby came to our house and showed us the property impacts, which were considerable. But the engineering department has been able to make some changes in front of our property that have allowed us to get on board with the sidewalk bike path option. One of the changes that Marie referred to was narrowing the bike path in front of our property from 10 feet to 8 feet wide. Now, it's difficult to get a sense of how big something is from an engineering plan. And when we look at the plans, it's just a bunch of numbers on a flat place. So I went out to Pease with my tape measure, where there is a 10-foot wide bike path. That thing is enormous. It is enormous. Now, some of the properties on my side of the street are set back, and they won't be affected very much at all. But I know there are other properties alluded to that where the city has a right-of-way and doesn't have to make accommodations necessarily. I think it would be right to make an adjustment to the bike path width as well. A 10-foot wide bike path might be the optimal width, and it might be better than an 8-foot bike path, but I feel confident in saying, based on the traffic on our road, that an 8-foot path is definitely safer than a bike lane in the road. So whatever disadvantages 8 feet wide of bike path has versus 10 feet, it certainly is still much better than bikes in the road, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not an engineer, but that seems to be pretty sensible. And finally, my point, the sidewalk plus the bike path option would make for the narrowest. Marie alluded to the traffic on our road, and I've been there for 26 years as well, so anything that is going to help organically slow the traffic and speed, and I'd like to see other traffic calming measures, like maybe a speed table and limits on truck traffic, be a part of this plan. Some of these are taking place for Middle Road, for example. So some of these other roads that are getting traffic calming measures, I'd like to see them a part of this plan. And also just to note that we didn't, as Peverly Hill Road residents, we didn't receive any notice of this meeting. I heard about it through the grapevine. And so I did tell a couple of my neighbors who live right next to me last night, and I don't know if they're watching on Zoom, But I think if you see people not attending, it may be that they were unaware of this meeting. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening.
We have one participant via Zoom. Jonathan, go ahead.
Hi, so Jonathan Sandberg, I live at 160 Bartlett Street, calling to support whatever most robust possible bicycle infrastructure for Beverly Hill Road is really important, not just for connecting neighborhoods, I'm sure you've already heard from Don Darrow neighborhood but also accessing people who are not necessarily have cars, maybe people living at crossroads, having kids being able to access the new recreational fields off of down the road, and then also being able to access the ball fields in the plains. It's just really important connector, and you really have to consider not just a few people's properties, but also the right of way, and also making access for the maximum number of people to be able to use all the facilities that the city has to offer. So I just would want to emphasize that the need for as much robust bicycle infrastructure as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
I am Dean Colburn. I live at 287 Beverly Hill Road. I kind of mirror what Marie has said. The traffic on our street is horrendous. And if we do sidewalks, multi-use lane, bike path, and don't do anything to slow the traffic, it's going to be a mess. The project originated, as Marie said, at least 25 years ago, and all we wanted was a sidewalk. Like many other parts of the city, we just wanted a sidewalk. And then the project has grown into this, and it's taking people's land or city land, whatever. I mean, there's temporary easement and permanent easement. I don't know if permanent easement equates to eminent domain, but if it does, then you're taking people's property. And I think one or the other, a bike lane, a multi-use lane, a sidewalk, but I don't think all of that is really going to help if you don't do something about the traffic and the trucks. The trucks are crazy. At 6 in the morning, cars are doing 60 miles an hour, at least, on the road. I'm out in the morning, and it's crazy, and it happens all day long. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm not sure we're always heard, but I appreciate the opportunity. And, for me, for my 2 cents worth, I just want a sidewalk. That's all I want. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm State Representative Peter Salmsich I live on 34 Sweat Avenue, not directly on Beverly Hill Road, but, maybe 100 yards off of that. And I've often had the opportunity to walk that road when I go pick up my car at the Toyota dealership. And also through the past maybe 4 years, I've constantly heard from residents on that area, since I represent Ward 3. Of their concerns about the safety and the speeds. And I think we need to look at the fact that this is a city project for our neighborhood here out on the Plains area or on Beverly Hill Road. This is something not just for us, but it's also for the city. And as Peter Rice mentioned about the connectivity, We need to connect our neighborhoods that often feel neglected. I represent other neighborhoods in Ward 3 who also say, we never get any attention, we don't get anything happening in our neighborhood. We need to connect these neighborhoods more to each other, and this is, I think, a good project to help connect them via pedestrian and bicycle path. And I totally agree with the person who mentioned that riding in the roads with a bicycle with a curb is, in my opinion, very dangerous. We need to get the bicyclists off of the roadway. And incidentally, the wider the bicycle lane and the pedestrian zone is, we can presume that the slower people would be driving because the roadway is going to narrow. Now, in addition to that, it's true that traffic calming and additional addressing of the trucks is also incredibly important to do at the same time. But I would venture to guess that the properties on Beverly Hill Road after the project with the current proposal is finished will increase in value because of being a more livable area to live in. Right now, people have a lot of issues with Beverly Hill Road. It's hard to walk on, and I've done it because there's nothing there to walk on except the side of the road. But after that, it's going to be a very attractive area, and it's going to make people's property worth more. So yes, you might have some parts of your property used for this purpose. You will be compensated for it, but believe me, your property values will also go up. But also, families who have children with bicycles who now feel safe to drive on that roadway will be appreciating it. And even though some people say, what has posterity ever done for me? In fact, we have to plan for the future, and it's not just about us right now. It's about the whole city. So I so wholeheartedly support the current proposal. I think there can be adjustments made, as some have suggested, maybe narrowing of some areas. But I'd like to see the bicyclists and the pedestrians not on the roadway, have separate pathways, and calming that traffic to make it more safe. The two items I've always heard from neighbors in that area are safety and speed. So they don't feel safe with the traffic, and the speeds are too high. So I think if those issues are addressed by various designs of this project, I think that will be the biggest benefit, but I think there'll be other benefits for this neighborhood and for the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. A reminder to folks on Zoom, if you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand. I don't see any at the moment, but we're happy to take the next speaker.
Good evening. My name is David Allen. I live at 383 Union Street. I also have a son and two grandchildren who live in Elwyn Park, and two prospective grandchildren coming that also live there. So they will be using this area also. And I'll start by saying, we have the three policies that have been discussed many times: the Complete Streets policy, the Bike Ped master plan, and the 2014 master plan that all identify this project. And in general, I would say that Representative Somcich said pretty much summed up the way I feel about this. I really appreciate the fact that we would have some connectivity here, that pedestrians and cyclists would be served by these improvements. And I'll go over my top 10 reasons that just, one-word things, because I want to be quick here. But number 10 is the future skate park. Number 9 is the rail trail. Number 8 is the Plains playground. Number 7 is the Plains ball field. Number 6 is the YMCA. Number 5 is the new multipurpose athletic field. Number 4 is recreation in general. Number 3 is project costs. Number 2 is children, and number 1 is safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi there, my name is Jay Krupp and I'm at 375 Greenleaf Ave, and I'm not opposed to smart community projects, and I think that there might be a way that this could be a smart community project. For me to be fully on board with the project, you know, I'd really want to see like that next level of detail. That would be the next step. For me, it's, you know, the sidewalk, the multi-use path, all of these end up having the same impact on my land, because my impact is almost half an acre of land that would be taken to do drainage. That's a big piece of land. Most of our lots aren't even a half acre big, right? You know, my initial impression of the project is that the design from the drainage standpoint, I'm only looking at the drainage part, it seems okay. I don't think that it's covered what happens at high tide. If anybody's driven past, you know, the Bratskeller or down Route 1, you can see what high tide looks like out there. I think that it's going to encroach on the gravel wetland. I really like to understand what happens when it does, and the idea that it just simply flows out at the, you know, next low tide doesn't seem like it's treating that water the right way. I'll wrap up with what I'm going to say by identifying, I went on the walk in April when we did that. Thank you for doing that. I think that that brought the neighborhood together, and we actually put context and could visualize what was happening. I did think that one of the options that was raised at that time was only the multi-use path, because that gave the benefit of narrowing the road to reducing the speed of the traffic, as well as lessening the impact on what would be the sidewalk only side, but keeping that multi-use path. I thought that the idea was we could have less of an impact by keeping just the multi-use path. That doesn't seem to be one of the options that we saw. I'm not sure if others understood that too, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next via Zoom is Chris Robillard. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey everyone, Chris Robillard, 28 Beachstone, and I just wanted to share my perspective. I live on Route 1, and we're kind of on an island, and Beverly Hills kind of like that main artery to get over to Plains Field, you know, the west end. I work on Pease, and before the pandemic, I used to ride my bike to Pease, and Beverly Hills, a nightmare, as everyone knows. And, you know, you kind of ride up the street and you hope today's not your day. So, I mean, it's kind of important for us to be able to access it. Narrowing those bike lanes, in my opinion, creates a hazard if two bikes are trying to cross one another. So I'm just trying to advocate for the bike lanes. And I don't see the rail trail as a viable alternative to that from a commuting perspective, because a lot of that area is heavily wooded and gets pretty messy back there after rain. And so I used to ride my bike a lot on Beverly Hill before I was working remote, and it's a nightmare. So I would love to see some bike lanes on there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm Ned Reynolds. Live at 110 Aldrich Road. Lived here in Portsmouth for 20 years, a little over 20 years now. Got 3 kids gone through, or one still in the school system. Served 3 terms on the city council, about 30% of the time here. And even some of the time when I was not, I was honored to be asked to serve on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan Advisory Committee that the city convened. And of course, that specific master plan and that advisory committee was undertaken because in all of the master planning that's been done, the general city master plans that I'm aware of, there's always been a consistent desire expressed by residents all over the city to, you know, do a better job of controlling traffic, getting speeds down, making the city more bicycle and pedestrian friendly, more possible for more people of all ages and abilities and comfort levels to get around the city, to walk or ride or use non-car modes of transportation to get around. So we did the bike ped master plan. We, I think it was 2015 or 2016, the council adopted the complete streets policy. And of course, we have rolling 5-year master plans where all of these measures are gradually implemented. So, as people have mentioned, a lot of people have been looking forward. This Beverly Hill Road, been a problem for a long time, and we finally are at the point of implementing a lot of planning, both engineering and also financial planning. Of course, the stuff that Eric and Peter handle, applying to the state for grants to reduce the burden on city taxpayers in order to make improvements to roads. Lots of planning going into it, and we're on the verge of implementing everything that's been envisioned for Beverly Hill Road. And yet here we are on the fourth Monday in June, a meeting night that I'm sure there was at the beginning of the year, probably not a city council meeting or any kind of work session plan, but nonetheless, we had to have this city council, at least the mayor and 4 or 5 members of it, stick their nose in at the last second and say, oh, wait a second, all this planning that's happening, all the intention that's been expressed, all the engineering that's been done, the finances that have been secured, we've got to step back and we've got to take another look, and we've got to have site visits, and for Pete's sake. You've heard a lot of people express, you know, the reasons why, and Dave Allen just did a great job of enumerating all the reasons. You know, this is about safety, it's about connectivity of neighborhoods to each other, neighborhoods to all the recreational assets that the city has. Beverly Hill Road is a key connector, one side of the city to the other. You know, from people who are on the Islington side over to Route 1 and beyond, to the beach, to the new ball fields we've got. So please just proceed and implement all the planning that we've done, the complete streets policy, using and not putting in danger the CMAQ grant, state money, and implement the current alternative, the road, the sidewalk, and the shared use path. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to participate, either live or via Zoom?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Glenn. I live at 34 Harrison and Owen Park. And for me, personally, Beverly Hill is just an important way to get around. I commute a lot by bicycle. I'm not super fast. The only time I've taken my children by bicycle to the Plains playground was with 40 other bike riders and a police squad car that was kind enough to follow us. So clearly, as many have expressed, not a safe road for walking or biking. I think tonight I really wanted to hear from residents, and I wish we had more residents to hear from. I thought there would be a good number more on Zoom speaking up. I can report that one, Don Jones, said to me that he was planning to come. He's lived on the road 40 years, is very supportive of the multi-use path, and I hope if he's out there he raises his hand on Zoom. But he personally went out today, knocked on some doors, told me that he found 3 supporters who said their opinions were already known, they had written in, and he found 3 more who were supportive but didn't want to do that in public. So it was great to hear from, I think, 3 people here tonight. One of those who definitely is going to have a permanent easement required, and it's good to hear that accommodations have been made, and it looks like we have a path to move forward. I'm a part of SABRE, Seacoast Area Bike Riders. I did not call for a crowd of bike supporters to come out tonight because I really think our point here is just that the road needs to have a safe route for bikes. How we do it, which properties are impacted, whether there's also a sidewalk on the other side, is not our business. But there is clearly widespread support for safe ways to get around beyond driving. I think that what hasn't really been answered tonight is, of the residents, given the options just laid out, waiting 1 more year, waiting 2 more years, potentially jeopardizing that grant funding, which could take even longer, are enough people supportive of what we have before us now that we could go forward, or do we need to go back to the drawing board? And I really feel like I, for one, would love to see this happen before my kids are out of high school, because we would use that road. And I just want to also bring up the many people not in the room. We've heard from the director of the Chase Home, very much in support of the current plan. We've heard from the director of the Portsmouth Housing Authority with Wamisit Housing there, very much in support. And we've heard from the director of Crossroads House. So let's remember all the people they represent as well. Thank you.
Sorry to come up again. Our road hasn't been important for 25 years. Now we've got a big collection of people that finding the importance of safety on our road. I am not, again, I'm opposed to the scope of this project. I am not opposed to a multi-use path. I want to know what this is. Is it a multi-use path or is it a bike path? Because I'm hearing bikes come in either direction. They don't want it narrowed down. They don't want to have problems with this and that. Is it for just bicycle riders or is it for everybody? Because the word multi-use keeps getting thrown at us. Shared use keeps getting thrown at us. Shared use, multi-use is walkers, kids learning how to ride their bikes, kids on rollerblades, you name it, everything will be happening on that path. I don't think we need both the sidewalk and the multi-use path. I'm just not understanding what exactly you're calling this and what you think this is going to be.
The intent is for it to be a multi-use path.
Sounds to me like it's going to be used as strictly for bike riders.
So the intent is for it to be a multi-use path. That's why it's a 10-foot wide path. It's proposed to be 10 foot wide. During the design process, when we were going through the options, a single path, which was both sidewalk and bicycle paths, was reviewed, and it was decided by consensus that it was not a good option because it required crossing the street to get to that path. And the majority of the folks were on the north side of the roadway, and that we couldn't accommodate a bicycle pedestrian path on the north side. So therefore, that's how it ended up with one on the sidewalk on one side and the bike path on the other side. But it's intended to be a multi-use bike path so that both pedestrians and bicyclists can use it. You are correct that a narrow bike path makes it more challenging, and people have to accommodate that. And that's, we've indicated that we can adjust this, and that it's something that we'd be more than willing to consider. But that's kind of how we got to that point, Marie. So I
just keep hearing bikes.
Pedestrians will be using that as well.
And again, I'm just still on the same thing with, I don't think it needs to be on both sides. I just think it's gone.
I understand that opinion, and I just shared why it came to the point that it did.
Okay, I'm just frustrated. Like I said, we haven't been an important road for over 25 years, and now it seems important to everybody. But who cares about the people on that road? Is what the consensus I'm getting is, like, just go ahead and do it. We don't care about these people that are there. And I think that's the wrong way of handling it.
I understand.
I'm going to allow Donald Jones to speak on Zoom. Go ahead, Donald.
Hello, everyone. I've been on Peverly Hill Road as a resident for 40 years. I certainly have been listening to Marie and Dean and some of my other fellow residents on the road and what they've had to say this evening. I would be in favor of moving ahead with the project as it is. The safety, I mean, and what I've been hearing is that for 25 years we've been looking for this, and that at one point in time it was strictly a sidewalk. But things have moved on, and there are so many other. There's more ball fields. There's more recreation available. I think that there should be a means for safe multiple use. Now, fellow residents, you know me as a cyclist. Having said that, though, I'm concerned as well about the kids. I raised two daughters on this road. Nervous every time they try to walk up to the Plains Field to watch baseball up there. I think that we should embrace the opportunity to move forward with the project. Now, I'm also hearing, like Marie and Dean talk about the possibility of making it a multi-use lane on perhaps one side. Maybe that's an alternative. But let's not abandon the concept of multiple use lane. And I know that we're hearing cycle, but we're not talking about just bicycles. We're talking about people who skateboard, rollerblades, push scooters. Yeah, and there will also be cyclists. And I think that it's a time when we should address that. I did go around this afternoon, and I don't feel, but I feel that people that I spoke with who said that they didn't really want to be involved publicly, I don't feel as though I should release their names, but I got feedback from some people who felt that they would like to see the project move forward. You may not see them on Zoom tonight, but personally, I wanted to know how my neighbors were feeling. So I took the time to go out. I didn't speak with everybody. There were a few doors I knocked on that people couldn't come to. I did this late in the stage here, but it's been a concern of my wife and I for years. And my fellow residents. I'm sure that I talked with Marie this afternoon. I'm sure she's tired of seeing me pull into her driveway because I'm coming down Beverly Hill Road on my bicycle. In order to be able to make a left-hand turn into my driveway, the safest way to do that is to pull into Marie's driveway across the street from me, so that I can wait for traffic and come across the street. I would appeal to folks to consider, that we're on. A lot of planning has been done, and there's safety issues. Again, if it means a combination, a multiple use lane on one side, maybe that's the answer as well. But please don't abandon the safety for several means of transportation, in cycling and other non-vehicular means. I'm also aware that, getting trucks off the road, if that's possible. This plan actually, with a 22-foot travel way, could reduce speeds. It's the only one that I've seen of the three plans that could accomplish that. So, give that consideration. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Donald. We have two other folks that wish to comment on Zoom. There are folks that are typing in the chat. I'm not able to read it all in its entirety or to share with this group, so I would ask those people commenting in the chat if they'd be willing to speak and raise their hand. I'd be happy to call on you. Next up is Jessica DeBellis. Jessica, go ahead.
Oops, sorry, we were muted. My name is Noah Hester. I'm Jessica's husband. We just wanted to speak out in support of the bike path. We moved to our home. We live at 293 Unit 7. We moved to our home. And prior to that, we lived in multiple rental apartments where we had access to similar bike paths. And they're really just a great community asset. On a nice day, you have tons of families out there riding their bikes. You have kids rollerblading, skateboarding with their friends, jogging. And that's the real benefit of the 10-foot wide lane, is that you can have a family riding together. They don't necessarily have to ride in a line. They can ride together and still communicate with each other, and there's still room to pass other people coming the other way. I know our neighbors in 287 had mentioned their frustration that, you know, they wanted this for 25 years. Their kids never had access to this, a safe route to get to the ball field or anything like that. We're expecting our first kid in the fall, and this is a project that we're really excited about. We're really looking forward to having a place where we can teach our son how to ride a bike, how to rollerblade, stuff like that. In addition to being able to walk our dog, go jogging. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Eugene's hand raised, but it's been lowered. So if Eugene, if you wish to speak, come back on. Anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you, Peter Somsich again. I just wanted to add a couple things as my perspective in the legislature. And I sympathize very much with Maria about the fact that this has been neglected for so many years. However, I would like to also say that if it was just a sidewalk improvement on that road, that would be something most likely that the city would have to pay in full. It's a very hard sell to get any money out of Concord to do anything in towns. And if this is an air mitigation issue and funding, we got to make a good case why we're actually mitigating air quality downward to better quality. Incidentally, an air quality improvement is improvement for everybody. So if we're trying to make the case that that's why we want the money, sidewalks alone are not going to be a good case from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Via Zoom, we have Eugene Zakharoff. Go ahead, Eugene.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me.
We can.
This is Eugene Zakharoff. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak and support this project. My partner and I have lived on Beverly Hill Road at 541 for about 8 years. And we really experienced how horrendous the traffic and how unsafe it is. As a matter of fact, when we built our house 8 years ago, we were not able to put in our own driveway in because of how dangerous the road is. So we're in full support of the project, the way that it's proposed, with the sidewalk and the multi-use lane. I think there were a lot of good points brought up today about people losing parts of their property, and it sounds like that the city is trying to make accommodations and reduce the width of the multi-use lane to accommodate some of those residents. So I'm in support of that as well. I really appeal to everyone to proceed with the project. It's been so many years in the making. So much investment, both emotional and financial, have gone into this. Don't delay this any longer. There's so much support from the residents as well as from other parts of the city that I think there is significant benefit to moving forward with the proposed path. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. I'm Jay Goldsmith,
My wife, Julia Russell, spoke previously. We're at 515 Beverly Hill Road, and I really appreciate you 5 people coming out tonight to listen to us. I'm a resident of Portsmouth for the last 74 years, and in 1994, we moved to Beverly Hill Road. But my office was in the west end of Portsmouth, about 2 miles away, so frequently I'd walk back and forth to work, and I estimate I've done so about 12,000 times. So I'm very happy to have a sidewalk. The bike path was moot to me, an academic, in April, until I started riding a bike this summer, and had forgotten the riding of it in the previous summers. But I will also be very eager to have a curb between me and the traffic. So we're in agreement of the proposal, and we're also in agreement of reducing it perhaps to 8 feet to accommodate some of our neighbors. Thanks.
Sir, do you wish to speak?
I'm Francis Cormier. I live on Melbourne Street. I was born in Portsmouth, and I began riding a bike in 1971. And I've been down Beverly Hill Road probably, I don't know, thousands of times during all those years. I wasn't going to say anything. I think, they pretty much covered it, but the way I see it, to have both a bike path and a sidewalk is taking up too much land, and if I lived on Beverly Hill, I'd be concerned to have both. But in my experience, using the bike paths that we do have, they're limited, but like the one in Pease, I use that, and once in a while you meet a pedestrian. And it's no problem. We just go by each other, and I meet a jogger once in a while, and it's, hi, how do you do? And there's no real problem. And that's the bike path in Pease. So I don't see why you need both, because it isn't like the amount of traffic on a bike path is not like the traffic on Beverly Hill Road, where it's bumper to bumper, where it's a continuous nonstop. I mean, a bike goes by, and then 5 minutes later, another bike goes by. So the multi-use path, as far as I can see, it would work. There's also another bike path from Woodbury Avenue to Pease, that little one that was built before you might be familiar. It's got a bridge, it goes over the highway. And, I use that enough, and I've never had a problem with another bike or a pedestrian or a jogger. So the multi-use path seems to be the most economical. And a sidewalk only, if you go sidewalk only and no bike path at all, you're taking your life into your hands to go down Beverly Hill Road if it's just a sidewalk. The way it is now with the trucks from Iafola and the cement trucks and the city yard, when I see a truck coming from behind me, I go off into the grass, honestly. And, I go down Beverly Hill probably 3 or 4 times a week, at least. Or not every day, but almost every day I go down Beverly Hill on a bike. And when one of those big trucks come up from behind me, I ditch it. So if it's going to be sidewalk only, I'm not going down Beverly Hill Road anymore. I'm going to go around by Bolorama and Route 1 and take the long way. So, but the multi-use path seems to be the most economical as far as I can see. But to have both, I can see why they're concerned. They live there. You know, it's their land, you know, and we're taking it from them. I can relate to what she's saying, you know, but there's got to be some sort of compromise, I guess, from what I hear from most people. So the multi-use path, in my opinion, seems to make the most sense. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak, either in person or via Zoom? I don't see any hands. Is there anyone up here who wants to mention anything further, clarify anything? Good. So, Peter, do you want to give closing remarks? We are going to obviously take all this feedback and report back to the council.
Yeah, well, so we've heard a lot of comments, and as we've explained, the rationale behind why a separate bike path, multi-use path in addition to the sidewalk was appropriate, and was the consensus from the public input during the initial design effort. So what we'll do is we'll come back and summarize what we got for input, the adjustments that have been made, and make a recommendation for council's consideration on what the next steps will be. And you know, our recommendation at this point would be to move forward with the process, but we'll, I think some of the adjustments that have been requested can be made, and I don't see you know, it being a showstopper relative to the accommodations. Obviously, cyclists would like additional width, but you can accommodate the traffic with an 8-foot lane as well. So we believe this is a good project, and we really appreciate the input. And I think as we move forward, I mean, the two big things that we heard were safety, speeds, you know, having traffic common is the third thing. But those are things that would get refined as part of the final design. In order for us to go forward to the final design, we have to commit to the process, because once we commit, we can't really back out relative to it, or we'll lose funding. So it's something that is necessary to move forward with. But we're at a point now where if the council decides not to do it, we can back out. It's not the end of that process. So.
Thank you. One more piece before we close.
I just want to clarify, if I understand correctly, the reasoning for having the sidewalk and the multi-use path is because people walking on that street and that don't have to cross the street to get to a sidewalk. Is that the main reason?
Yeah, and to accommodate a multi-use path that's wide enough, you would not be able to do that on the north side, which is the majority of the houses. So you'd be pushing people to the other side of the street, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a sidewalk or access there. So the consensus was, because of that both the sidewalk and the multi-use path should be built.
Before I just want to make a closing remark. Mr. Jones has his hand up again. Mr. Jones, are you able to speak?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
You hear me okay? Okay.
Yes, we can.
So why was it that no one from the city council was present this evening?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? You're kind of muddled.
I was expecting to see council members here at the council to be there tonight.
We do have members of the city council here, and
yeah, but not the city. I mean,
I can tell you that we do have councilors here, and they are listening intently. Some of them are taking notes.
But Don,
okay, so what I'm hearing is,
Don, if you were thinking there was going to be a vote or an action taken tonight, this is just a public input meeting. So it's not, there'll be no formal action taken.
Say that again, Don.
So it's going to be something that's going to be taken back to the council, and they will make a decision to move forward or not? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. That's correct. And
will there be another? And that decision will be the final decision?
We will have to see how this plays out on a council agenda, but when it comes up for council agenda, you are more than welcome to participate via public comment. And what I wanted to say by way of closing remarks, and maybe it's a good segue, but jump in, Don, if you have something else to add. We were careful to notice this meeting by sending out 2 email blasts to all the folks for whom we have an email address. So if we don't have your email address, please make sure we do have it. And that being said, I know the council is still very much accepting of additional email comments up to and through when this appears on a council agenda in the near future. So I don't know if you have anything else, Don, or if we've answered your question.
I know, I was wondering about interface with the council. I was not able to attend the public walk in early April. So, and I understand there were some issues that came up at that meeting. I only wish that I had been there to hear and respond to. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to have spoken this evening. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing further, the 5 of us will stay here for questions, and we thank you all for joining either live or via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you very much.